All right. So today we're going to talk on the topic of coaching, delivery, and serving your clients on calls. This will kind of go twofold into. I really want to open up and have some conversation with a few members here that are open to share kind of their experience thus far with their coaching their clients, blocks they've dealt with, and as well as that, like this is an area that not only will help you become more developed within delivery and helping achieve greater client results, but also this goes for those of you that are doing free sales sessions where you're doing free coaching calls to create opportunities, giving value. The same stuff that we're talking on this can really apply, and we'll even talk on some questions that you can ask at the end of those free value sessions to help them make a little bit more focused and also lean towards some opportunities as well. So this will kind of benefit you both within your lead gen and sales process as well as delivery process as a whole. And we'll get into conversation on that here shortly. To start, we're going to kick off with a couple questions here across the group, and I'm going to pull up and do screen share. And if everybody in the meantime could just pop open their Zoom chat. Let's kick off and talk on a few wins over the past 1 to 2 weeks. So let me know in the chat any wins, big or small, that you've been able to generate through your efforts over the last 2 weeks. Darren, welcome in, man. We are just getting started. Perfect timing.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
For those new here as well, with this kind of being first session with this, essentially on our calls, we usually like to kick off just with a couple questions here with the room muted for a little bit and some Zoom answers popping in. This way I can kind of get a feel for where you guys are at over the last couple weeks, and then we can roll into conversation from there. Okay. Awesome. Feel free to share away those on with you and Roman. So for those that didn't know, Alan's been enrolling some new clients into his new group coaching offer. So congrats to Alan on his new enrollments there. Increased ones. And this win reminded me too as well. And actually, Paul, for post that she shared in the Heartbeat community around her KPIs, because it's a great example for everyone here. Just in not only helping us coach you to the highest level possible, but also just keeping us in the loop on progression as a whole. And it had an awesome share in the KPI thread over the weekend. Good to hear too that this aligns well with you enrolling a new client too. Who else has any wins they want to share, big or small? All right. Really good wins across the board shared there. Let's talk on the opposite wins. Where have you felt some frustration or resistance in your business over the last 2 weeks? What's been on your mind recently in your business that you've been worried about, unsure about, thinking about? Okay. Who else? I know there's been some things on your mind, on many minds here. Less constant certainty at station. Okay. For those that have listed thus far, we have 3 that have been shared in the chat so far. If you guys could come back and as well as the future shares here as they come in, let me know what's 1 to 2 things that you're planning to implement or considering to implement to solve this. What do you have in your mind to change what you're experiencing and to improve it? Okay. Looking at these shares too, with today's topic around delivery and a lot around questions and coaching clients. Like I said, we may waiver and even transfer this into sales questions and conversation questions around that as well. So this may be like a twofold, but I want to make sure that it's applying to you guys in the most relevant ways possible with where you're at right now, so we can be helpful with what's going on today. So Alan, for you, man, I think the first step is to clarify, number 1, what you meant by what is it that you're supposed to do. Make a list of what in your mind you're supposed to do. Start with that first. And whether we get into it on the session here today, we can talk on it further. But for some food for thought to take into effect after this call today, after you write down the list of the items that you feel that you're supposed to do on this topic of feeling kind of like you don't know what to do more or less of and some uncertainty around that, write out first in your mind everything that you feel you're supposed to do. And then from there, I want you to go through and write out all the things that basically a list of how much time you're spending on each thing. And from there, circle the activities that you feel have driven your business the best outcomes and results over the last month to 2 months.
I can answer that if you don't mind. Like it's about identifying what actually brings the result. You know, a lot of times I would spend, I don't know, 1 hour on a reel, which I don't know if it's bringing me something. See, so I know that I have to roll out, like, you know, post on my profile, do live on my group, email my list, do a reel, video story. Like all these are inputs, but how am I supposed to know what is generating the most traction? See, like whether I write it or not, I'm not going to have the answer. See, like I'm not certain of this.
Yeah, this is good. We're going to get into that today. We'll talk on that more here soon. Just want to make sure we're getting through these questions first and one more question, then we'll jump back to that soon. But I marked down some context on that in the meantime. That's a really good question, though. Catch up here in the chat quick. Anybody else dealing with a feeling around focus, motivation type areas where it's getting yourself to do things in your business? I know it's come up with a couple here in the chat, just kind of wanting to get a feel for the room on this. Sure. All right. Final question, and we'll move on from here into some conversation around these areas. What's the one thing that you're committed to doing more of that will positively impact your business this week? One thing. One thing, if you had to say right now, that you feel in your mind is making the biggest difference. We're going to get into here next, just because I see this be a trend in the room around kind of identifying what those areas are and how you can go about measuring them. But for now, in your mind, based on the actions that you've taken, what do you feel is the one thing that you can put more time into that will positively impact your business this week? One thing. There's names that catch it on these phones here. Eunice, if you could clarify yours, man. You said I'd like to put more efforts into the kind of people I speak to or friend. Is this meaning you want to start more conversations with these folks? Let's clarify that one. I'm muted. Am I muted? Can you guys hear me? Oh, okay, good. Cool. All right, so we're going to start by kicking off on two areas. Let's draw the line first between, we know we have a few that we want to talk on, kind of identifying the leverage points and kind of where we should be putting more energy towards what's leading to the best outcomes for us, the best results, maybe what should we strip away and eliminate. In addition to that, on the topic of motivation, who here has ever felt this feeling in their business of like, I know what I need to do, but it's just getting up and actually doing the thing? Okay. So it's a common thing amongst everyone. I know this happened to myself before too. When you get into that mode, when you're going to sit down and say you're planning to work today, you got a few things that you know you need to do or want to do today, and you go to sit down and do the work, what happens? By what happens, I mean, what do you do next, or what do you think about instead? It's a good answer. How many will you answer about anything? I can relate to that. Does anybody know why this feeling comes about? I know we just saw Kevin here say why this happens. I don't know. Anybody else feel like they have an idea of why this happens? Or do they kind of feel the same way of like, man, I don't know why I have this feeling? Bear with me here as I pull a few things out and begin some conversation on this. Okay, one moment. Just make sure that noise is muted. Okay. So we're going to start by talking on this topic of taking action in our business, which all relates to, let's say, part of this is around motivation, which we know, but we have a few things that are different amongst what you guys have shared towards reasons as to why we're not doing this thing. This is the thing that we want to do more of, but we're not doing it. So we may not do this thing, take more action because, number one, like Alan said, maybe we're questioning serves you, what actions to take. What else? Brain protecting us from doing new stuff. New, uncomfortable, scary, also very valid. What else? For you guys, with this topic of taking action in business, what bucket do you feel you fall in the most? Let's call this bucket 1. Let's call this bucket 2. Let's call this bucket 3. There's a bucket that's not listed here. Feel free to list it. But if you had to put yourself in one of these buckets, which bucket would you put yourself in?
Like, could you zoom in please a little bit?
I most definitely can. Yep. Let me know if that helps.
A little bit more.
There we go. Yeah, as we continue on with today too, if we're on this map, if for some reason you get zoomed out, or if at any point you guys can't see, feel free to just give me a shout so I can zoom in. Third and first, okay. Second and third. So 3 is the one trend that's amongst all of us that we do. This is a little bit different from these first 2, but when we procrastinate, what do we typically run and do? It's gonna be different for everyone. When you guys are going to sit down and do the thing and you notice yourself jumping to doing something else, what's some of the first things that you usually jump towards? Or is that time in turn being allocated towards? Okay. What else? Great. What else? This all kind of falls in the same bucket of TV and training, but we're just going to say consuming. Okay, this is good stuff. So now, as this takes place, let's say you're planning today to go sit down in Messenger for an hour. You're going to do conversations for an hour. That's your goal. You sit down, you get into 1 to 2 conversations, and then you quickly find yourself either going and shutting off Messenger, jumping to turn on the TV, watching Netflix. Maybe you find yourself saying, I don't really know how to handle this conversation, so let's go watch some training. You jump to the training, go to another task, or maybe you go onto Facebook and start scrolling and just go into the news feed. If you had to say when that takes place, how long does that typically go on for? Do you go and watch TV for an hour? Do you go and watch training for an hour? 30 minutes, and then you realize, hey, I'm doing the wrong thing. Let's try to go back to the main thing. Or is it kind of just once you start to drift to this thing, you drift?
20 to 30 minutes.
20 to 30 minutes, and then you at that point you pick yourself up and pull your focus back to the main thing.
Exactly, and go back to the task at hand.
Okay. Okay, so it depends for everyone. Let's just have a little open conversation on this topic because this is super normal. I think everybody deals with this at one point or another in their online business. And it's something that if we're not continually putting pressure on it amongst ourselves, like it's going to creep in and it's going to happen again. More than often, again, this is going to differ for everybody. Everybody has different pleasures or habits that they have that make them feel good, make them feel happy, give them a dopamine rush, and make them want to gravitate towards doing that thing more in place of the other thing. But what we want to understand at the surface or at the core is we have the main thing. The main thing is the thing we know we need to do. And we have the side things, we're going to call this, or the distractions. The reason our brain pulls us away from the main thing towards these side things is because, number one, it's easier. More than often, when we're not doing the main thing that we want, having conversations, hopping on calls, doing the actions that we know we literally need to do to give our business a chance to grow. This is because this is so uncomfortable and gives us a happier feeling, makes us feel good. So we in turn are taking what our brain's telling us of, man, this is difficult. We know we need to do this, but it just doesn't feel right now. Let's go and do something that's easier. And if we let ourselves fall into that trap, we'll go and do that thing. We'll go watch TV or turn on Netflix. And as soon as we start that show, we get comfortable. It feels good. We're like, man, this is pretty nice. And before we know it, we get lost in this rabbit hole, time's wasted. And this can easily lead to a vicious cycle of basically going to the point where you turn on Netflix, go watch a show. You continue to watch the show for the next 2 hours without realizing it. You get to the end of the day and you're like, shit, I was supposed to do all these things today. I didn't do it. And then you start to beat yourself up for not showing up and doing the thing that you wanted to do. Then the next day happens and you say, okay, today I'm going to do this thing. You go turn on Netflix, you scroll through your news feed, the same cycle again happens. And the more that we allow this to happen over and over and over again, the more that we beat ourselves up for not doing the thing that we know we should be doing. Who here feels that? Is that a common trend amongst everyone? Or do you guys feel at this point when you're jumping away, you're not really like down on yourself for not doing it, what you wanted to do? For me, never happened. Let me know in the chat, or anybody that wants to feel free and come talk on the floor, welcome to do so as well. I feel guilty for not doing the main thing, so I don't enjoy doing the other thing because it's in the back of your mind. What this really comes down to at the core is we have to reverse the trend. Not beating myself up about it, okay? Feel guilty and a bit disturbed. And not being left alone, okay? Okay. And this is where everybody reacts differently. Some people are going to beat themselves up about it. I know I'm that type of person where if I committed to something, I got distracted. I went and did the other thing, and then time passed, and I didn't get to do the main thing that I wanted to do. I'm going to beat myself up about it. Not a good habit to have, but it's something that I know that in the way that I'm programmed, that's basically how my mind gravitates towards if I'm not doing that main thing itself. For some people, they won't beat themselves up. They'll be okay with it. They'll continue to do the thing. We have to figure out, I wouldn't say feel guilty, I just say tomorrow. Yep. The point is, at the end of the day, whether we feel guilty, whether we don't, whether we're telling ourselves a lie, if we can just start tomorrow or the next day, we have to reverse the trend. And I honestly think what Alan shared is a great mindset to have in these areas, because when it comes to getting our online business off the ground and getting it going in the direction that we want, even as we start to get it growing, to get to that next level, we're going to be, especially in the initial stages of God, even up to your first 20K, 30K month, you're going to be forced to do things that you don't want to do. And when you're not used to doing those things in the beginning, it's going to be easy to run away from those things and do other things that you do want to do or you do already know how to do. And to me, what's been helpful to me is really kind of gamifying the process. And this kind of all ripples into the other conversation around like, how do we know what activities that we should be putting more time towards? To break this cycle, we have to remind ourselves that number one, here and motivate each and every one of you to show up and do things in your business. We all have to have our own drivers as to why we're showing up here every single day to beat away at our craft and to build our online business, to build our brand, to build our business, to serve more clients. We have to have something that's pulling us to want to do that thing. Many of you may already have that in this group. Some of you don't. It's okay if you don't, but I think the first step is to remind yourself that we have to identify that first. And I won't sit up here and talk all about like finding your why and that repetitive thing around the cycle. But at the end of the day, we have to be in tune with our why. We have to know what's driving us and why we're showing up each and every day to pursue this thing, especially for those of you that are in a 9-to-5, because there's more fight for time and attention in your own day than anybody else. If you're making a decent living with your 9-to-5, enough to get by, enough to live a happy life, and you're content with your family, things are going okay, and you don't have anything motivating you or pushing you to push beyond in the side hustle to make this be your main thing, it's going to always be your side thing, and you always put it on the back burner until you tell yourself, hey, you know what? I'm going to prioritize this because I want this because of this. And for everybody, that's going to be different. It's going to be a different driver for each and every person. For me, at this point in my time, what's driving me is my future family. I know in the next coming years, hopefully be blessed to have a kid on the way and to begin growing my family here. And I want to give that kid the very best life possible. And I know that me, my business, growing this business is the vehicle to allowing me to make that life happen for my family and for my kids. So I put that weight on my shoulders to show up and to execute into my business. So each and every day I can chip away at that why and that vision towards bringing that to life. Knowing it's not going to happen overnight. Knowing there's going to be some bumps in the road. But at the end of the day, that is what's making me get out of bed in the morning, show up, and execute my business as the core main driver. But there's also smaller drivers beneath that too that all tied together and making us want to show up each and every day. I love serving you guys. I love my clients. I love doing other aspects of my business. I love sharing content. I love working my business in certain ways. All these things help excite me and motivate me to show up. So I think to me, it's either when we're looking for the reasons to why we want to focus on the thing more or put more attention towards it more, it's either we're wanting to escape or create. Either we're driven by the idea of escaping our 9-to-5, escaping the crap that we're in right now. We're just going to call it the crap. Or we're driven by the idea of creating a different life for So depending on what you're motivated by, maybe you're motivated more out of fear. Like, hey, you know what? I freaking can't stand this 9-to-5 job. If I stay in this each and every day for the next 2 years, my health's not going to be in a good spot. I have to get away from this. Or it's the opposite. You're motivated by, hey, what could be if what that is for you is up for you to decide. Feel free to let me know in the chat what you feel you're motivated more by, whether it's getting away from a negative thing in your life or creating a new positive thing to offset that. But these are small things that we can simply remind ourselves of every single day. And if we're reminding ourselves every single day, if you're in a job that you freaking can't stand and you hate going to work every day, and you're reminding yourself as to why you're showing up and just chipping away in your online business to escape that, and you're still not showing up and doing small actions to change that, to me, that comes back to you and how bad you really want it itself. More than often, we lose sight of these reminders. we lose sight of this awareness around why we're doing this to begin with. And we kind of just get lost in the sea of actions that we're supposed to do. We feel overwhelmed and we want to get comfortable. So we want to go do something comfortable. When I started, I was in escape mode. Now everything shifted to creation. That's where I think I am now. Vision board is an awesome thing to do as well. Something I did before too. Actually still have mine upstairs as well. It was pretty cool to see. I created it like 3 years ago, and was able to basically knock off like half of it over these last 2 years. And it was something that kind of went away in hiding and pretty back on and see. But again, it's a different, the driver depends on you and what you're driven by. If you're driven by material things or getting to a certain thing that you want to achieve, or but you have to be in tune with why you're showing up and why this whole online business is important to you to begin with. Each and everybody in this program, for those that have invested to be here, you're here for a reason. You put money into your business because you care about it. You put money into your future because it's important to you. To me, that alone you want to build in the future and why that's so important to you now. And that's the reason that you invest in this program. Mercedes GT AMG. I'm a big car guy too. That's a sick car. And for Alan, that's another driver for him. He looks at that car every single day as maybe a driver for him to once eventually purchase. Cool thing is it's different for all of us. The hard thing is we got to find out what really lights us up ourselves. Once we find that, we also need to know that even when we're in tune with this, reminding ourselves of this daily, we're still going to get into our own way. And we have to be conscious enough to pull ourselves out of that. So even as we're in tune with our why and we know we need to do X thing, we have to put ourselves in a position to make it so we are solely executing on this thing. So how can we eliminate resistance to execution? So the way I like to look at this, spelling it off here. Okay, there we go. For those that are finding themselves jumping around, not doing X thing, start to be aware and write down, even at the moment, catching yourself. Hey, the moment you said you're going to do Messenger today and you go and jump to watch TV, catch yourself at that moment and write it down. Hey, I just committed to doing an hour of Messenger, and now I just went to sit down and go watch an hour of TV. And then ask yourself from there, what made me want to jump over to this? What was the resistance to execution that made me run and jump? Was it fear? Was it unsure on what to do? Whatever it was, go deeper with this. If it was fear, if you on that moment with that awareness and say, okay, be honest with myself here. Why did I go and just jump into this thing? In your head, you'll probably be like, honestly, like not sure on how the call went. Opportunity didn't feel right. I didn't want to waste time on it. Didn't seem great. Didn't want to waste time on it. Bad taste. This is the surface level thing that your brain's telling you. Now go deeper. Ask yourself why. Why do you feel this way? More than often, the more that we can go deeper on the one thing that's causing us to have that resistance and run away, define that, clarify what that is behind it, go deeper with why. What we're going to do is get to the point where we're essentially getting down to the core of what's happening. This is the same that goes for this topic that we're going to be getting into here next on this topic of coaching, where you may have a client that is dealing with the same thing, where they're unsure on what to do, or they're not showing up and doing the things in their business. Could be for a variety of reasons. They're unsure on what to do, they're fearful, etc. It's our job as the coach to help uncover that and help get them to see what is really going on. And the funny thing I think oftentimes we feel like we have to, as a coach, realizing
Recording in
like
progress.
what is pulling our motivation, what isn't, and why is that happening. And if we can create awareness around that, we in turn can start to change it. And our job as a coach, just like I'm doing with you guys here, is helping you create awareness around why this is happening. Asking you why, asking you what you're feeling, asking you to go deeper, because I know that by going more and more levels deep, we're going to uncover the root of what is actually taking place here. Make sense so far? Or does it sound like a bunch of voodoo mindset nonsense? Feel free to challenge me. Kevin, for you, man, I know you're dealing with this now, and it's something that you felt like you really have never dealt with before. If you be honest with yourself, if you go and sit down to do work in your business today and you're going and jumping and watching TV, what is it really in your mind when you go and do that thing that you're running away from? Being 150% honest with yourself. Or just state the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I think you do. I think we can get to the bottom of it. But I think we have to change from I don't know to this is what it is. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm doing. The more, just like same with Alan, same with Eunice, we're talking about areas of leverage, areas to put more attention towards. The first reaction our mind's going to do is say, I don't know. I don't know why this is happening. I don't get it. Doesn't make sense. I'm challenging. What made you decide to start this online business?
I mean, originally I got started because I wanted time freedom. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to stop working a job, right? I didn't want to have to deal with that stuff. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do with my wife, right? Retire her. And like I said, be my own boss, right? I didn't want to deal with being an employee. I mean, that was the biggest one for me, time freedom.
What does that time freedom do for you and your family?
Whatever I want. So it's not like a specific thing like, hey, I'm going to, go race cars for 6 hours a day. It's just having the luxury of being able to do what I want when I want and not have to worry and have anxiety about money and bills and retiring and that, like knowing that I don't have to worry about that stuff was important for me.
Okay.
I think I'm in that mode where, like you said it earlier, like it's not all that bad right now. Like a job is pretty easy. Like since COVID, like working from home, I have a ton of flexibility. I have a ton of time. It's not the same pressures that I had. So I want to say it's easy, but it's easy. And, maybe it's because I'm older and I've been working hard for 30 years that I feel like having to work hard again.
Yeah.
Does it get me that much more of a lift? Like, and not to sit here and say I have a ton of money right now, but like, we're fine, right? Like we put in a new pool and we do the things that we want to do. So it's certainly not a money thing, but like the time thing too, right? It's like I'm sitting here on this call with you, right? When I got started in this business, I could spend hours on this. So I think it's a little bit of that, right? Where it's like, it's not so bad, where it's like I'm pulling my hair out to get out. And it's less painful to have to go through all that.
Bingo. You hit the nail on the head. We just uncovered it. You're comfortable, which is okay. This is a good thing. You put yourself in a good position at this point in your life to where, like, if you really didn't want to go and do this online business, you could say, screw this, I'm done. Let's just stick to what's working, what's making me money, and stick to the life I have. Because it's working. It's providing for your family. It's paying the bills. You have time. You have some freedom in working from home. You have some luxuries that maybe you once didn't have that are now here with COVID, which makes it even more attractive. But this is what we want to create distance from if this is really important to you. But this is the thing that's making us fall back and do things that aren't towards this growth of this online business, because we don't have to. We're comfortable. It's not needed.
Yeah.
But I think you pointed, there's one thing you said to me on the kickoff call that I still remember from a couple of days back, where you mentioned, like, man, this isn't like I'm a 26, 27-year-old guy anymore. Like, I'm getting older now. That's something for you that drives you to make decisions, that drives you to take action in your business, because you know that you're not getting any younger. That piece helps take the comfort out. So if you can give yourself perspective every morning that, hey, I'm X years old, I only have X time left to start actually making moves towards this. Every day that I go and watch more Netflix is a day I get older itself. And let's say you know that if you don't make this online business happen by the age X, it won't happen. So now you create discomfort, you create drive.
Yeah.
So I think I would look into the areas of how can I create some discomfort for myself to motivate myself to show up and change this, knowing that, hey, everything's okay right now, but what would be better if I had this, or how would things change if I had this? And I think when I asked the question before of, like, why are we building this online business and what will it bring you specifically, you mentioned nothing specifically, just more time, more freedom to do whatever. I would encourage you to take it a level more specific. What will that extra time that you would get with your wife do for your marriage? And if you continue to stay in this time that you have now that you're dedicating towards your wife and your marriage, how would that impact your marriage and your relationship with your wife? Small things like that can really zoom out and give you perspective. Because let's say now, again, this is not me assuming anything about anybody here in this room. Let's just, this sake of example. Let's say you're in your 9-to-5 now, you're content, you're making good money, you're paying the bills, same situation, but you really aren't giving your time, extra time to your wife as a result of that, because you're working so many hours to make this money happen. And in turn, your relationship is kind of up and down. But your wife is super, super important to you. And you want nothing more than to have a thriving relationship and to hopefully eventually one day buy a condo in some location. If that's the thing, then that can be the motivating driver for you every single day. We're like, hey, I'm not doing what I need to do for my wife now, and I know that this is the vehicle to me doing that. And I'm going to work every single day just for 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day and chipping away at this, knowing that if I can show up for the next 2 years, putting in this time, then I'm going to put myself in a position to make that happen. Once we zoom out, give ourselves a perspective as to why we're doing this, what the vision is, and why we're showing up each day, now the next step is to start, to me, gamifying the process to making that happen and starting to actually build momentum on that. Because even if we go and create some discomfort and drive, we may get fired up and say, you know what, screw this. You know what, you're right. I just found this drive. This is why I'm doing this. Let's show up tomorrow and make some shit happen. So you show up tomorrow, you go and do the thing, and you actually show up and do the thing. Do the thing. This time you did it. We're going to call this green check mark. Then the next day happens. And you procrastinate again. what we want to do is try to create a consistent trend of us showing up and doing the thing. Because if we have this as a driver, we make this commitment to ourselves that I'm going to show up for the next year and do this thing to make this thing happen for my family, for whatever it may be that's pushing me. Now we're putting the ball in our court and we're holding ourselves accountable to actually showing up and doing that thing. The more that we do the thing consistently, us, let's say, showing up and just you putting out a post for 7 days in a row, the more momentum builds, the more that you get more excited to do the thing more. But we have to know that as soon as we even switch that driver and motivation, we may feel pumped up to start. This is why many people get super excited when they start their online business. They see what can happen. They see the potential. They feel like they're on a good path. They show up and take actions, and then they fall off. And they go back to their old habits and they give up on their dream because they didn't stick with it long enough and they weren't consistent enough. But when we can commit to ourselves and follow through with the commitments that we're making to ourselves, we now feel better about ourselves. We feel better about what we're doing each day. We build momentum. We build confidence. It ripples into every area of our business and life. And this feeling that we have now about, man, just doesn't feel right to show up and do these things. Action feels tough. That all fades away as you start to really compound these actions over a period of days, weeks, months, especially as you start to see the results come to life from it. But the hardest point is making the decision to commit, holding yourself accountable, and actually showing up and doing the thing until we get to the point where we actually start to see results. There's that large gap of time where it's committing, showing up, starting to take action, and sticking with it until we actually see the end come to life. Most people don't make it through that gap of time. But each and every one of you guys here can choose today, I'm going to make it through that gap because I know each and every one of you can. Alan mentioned what helped me was the challenge we ran in April, remember. So why did that challenge maybe help Alan? This all comes back to the topic we're going to talk on here next, which was related to what Alan shared early in the call as well. Because what we did was, in let's say this challenge example, Alan committed to doing this challenge. He showed up and started doing the thing. And he was driven by this challenge itself to show up and continue to do the thing. But essentially, all we did was take commitment, turn it into action. And from there, we started measuring and gamifying our actions to continue to show up. And I still do this for myself to this day, because even I know there's going to be days where I don't feel like doing shit, where I don't feel like showing up, where I feel like going and distracting myself and doing something else. But if I have something that I can visually see in front of me that's helping me gamify and show up and take small actions each and every day, the actions become less intimidating, less daunting, and they become more fun. And we feed off of each and every day that we fulfill and show up and do, and it becomes better and better and better into the next days. The action always feels worse in the beginning. But if we can continue to show up, it gets easier and easier and easier. The trend reverses. Always more than likely going to be a straight, flat line in the beginning of you showing up, publishing content, having conversations, doing all these things. Once you get to the point of actually starting to do it, you're doing these things for a stretch of, let's say, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever the time frame may be. And we don't see any upward trend come from it yet. We don't see any outcomes come from our actions. And this is the hardest time to show up. Because we're like, damn, I'm showing up and doing these things daily. When will my time ever come? This is, again, the reason why most people never make it to success online, because they don't make it through this bridge. They don't realize that if they continue to press on here, while being aware of the actions that they're taking, that eventually is going to lead to a massive upward trend. And then from here, they'll go up, maybe back down for a little bit, back up again. It's like a stock. Just like a stock on the US stock exchange, no matter how bad a recession is, no matter how, let's say right now, there's a recession taking place, stocks are tumbling, everybody's fearing. What happens when the market crashes and everybody fears? The majority of the people run and get scared and jump out. They pull their money out of their investments. They think, man, if I continue to hold on to this year, I'm going to lose everything. I got to get out now and be done. The smart ones hold and they buy more at the dip because they know it's only going to go back upwards if they stick to it and if they stay with it. It's proven. We can look at all the history of the stock market. No matter how bad it goes down, it always comes up with time. Same goes with your business. As long as you're showing up and being conscious about your actions, you will always eventually go up. You may not see the upwards trend right away, but you will in turn eventually go up. But we have to give ourselves a chance to see that, actually have that come to life. So how can we know when we're on this path of, let's say here, where we're showing up, doing these things, and we still don't know, man, is this working? Is this not? Even if we start to get results, what's working, what's not? What should I put more time on? What shouldn't I? This is where one thing is critical above anything else. And there's one thing that we preach a lot in this program. Some take it very seriously, others not as much, but maybe this call today will help more take this super seriously because it's super, super important. I'm going to change this to measuring. Measuring our actions. Measuring our actions not only gamifies the process, it helps us show up and do more because we see the output that we're doing each and every day. But what else does measuring our actions provide us in the future?
Adjust.
Bingo. We can always adjust. We can always become better. We can always improve if we're measuring. So let's use a hypothetical example here. Let's say we have starting point 1, starting point 2. And let's just say for this sake of example, both of these folks, these are two different people, both are at 0 with their online business. They're just getting started. And let's say both of these fought with themselves and showing up, taking action in their business, but they align with their why. They made a commitment to themselves and they said, hey, I'm going to show up for the next 30 days and do this thing. Change this here. And let's say over these next 30 days, nothing really happens in terms of results. They've just been kind of showing up and doing the thing. Now let's say with starting point 2 guy, we're going to call this just Bob for sake of example. We're going to call this John. Bob measured. Bob tracked his actions. John did not. John just showed up. Both have the same exact results at the end. Same endpoint, both no sales. What's the difference between Bob and John going into month 2? Awareness, for sure. Anybody else? For one thing, if John's not really tracking what he's doing each step every day, he's probably a little bit random with his actions. And in turn, maybe he's a little bit more consistent than what he used to be, but he's shown up throughout the month. He's taken some more action than he ever has before. Wasn't every single day consistent or just consistent as a whole, but he was doing the thing. Bob was much more consistent just because he looked and he was aware of the few things that he wanted to do each day, and he tracked himself doing those things each day. So we know off the top, the person that measured is more consistent than the person that didn't. But the benefit number 2 is Bob can go into month 2 and he can reflect and he can see exactly what he did. He can see I offered X calls. You see I put up X posts. And if he's smart, maybe he has a coach that can help look in and see, hey, this is what I did this month. How can we adjust things going forward to improve things in month 2? But by Bob tracking and measuring his actions, not only did he make it easier for himself to show up, easier to be consistent, He also gave himself the data to be able to improve going into month 2. John, even if he was religious as hell and showing up and doing the thing, by the end of month 1, going into month 2, he's not really sure exactly what all he did. He knows he showed up. He knows it feels good that he showed up, but he's probably going to go into month 2 and do the same thing. And eventually this will stall, this will fade, and he'll drop off and stop showing up because he's unsure on what to change, what to improve, what to advance to continue to build momentum going into the next month. He doesn't know what he should put more time on, what he shouldn't. And he just keeps going through the cycles, trying to get himself to show up, hoping that eventually the results will come. And eventually that fades and he gives up. Bob, on the other hand, even though he's at 0, just like John, he knows that he's getting better each and every month. And he knows that he's getting closer to his goal each and every month with his actions. Not only that, he knows that he has what he needs. Knowing where the bottlenecks are. Exactly. And putting the ball in his own court by seeing, hey, where did he show up? Where didn't he? Maybe Bob, this first month, consistent every single day, he was putting up content, he was starting conversations, but he realized, man, you know what? The reason I didn't have any opportunities to make sales is because I can see it clearly here. I wasn't offering calls. I wasn't giving myself a chance to actually speak with folks and present an offer. So now the question becomes around, why was he not offering calls? Was it a lack of understanding? Was it a fear? What was it that was stopping him from doing it? And how can we change that in month 2 to improve it? This is coaching. John, on the other hand, we can try to look back in his month and guess on what we did, what we should improve. But all we're doing month to month is just guessing and guessing our way to hopefully find success. And guessing leads to us disappointed, us not getting the results we want, us giving up. Measuring leads to guaranteed growth, guaranteed progression, and a visual snapshot of actually seeing what that looks like, even if we're not making money. Who here is measuring their actions in their business each and every day? Who isn't?
Not anymore.
Let me know in the chat. Me or not me? So Kevin, for you, not me right now, but this could also be a trend for you right now to see, hey, I was doing this before and I never once had this feeling of not wanting to show up. But now that I'm not doing this, I have this feeling. That could be a trend that immediately helps you see, man, I need to get back into tracking. But for those that said no, why don't you track? Why don't you measure your actions? This isn't for me to say you're wrong or you're doing the wrong thing or you're dumb for not tracking. Hopefully by the end of this call, you'll want to track more, but I want to just see what, in your mind, what makes you not want to track. Okay, what else? Be as honest as you can. Okay, who else? Eunice has shared some great insight as to why he may not be tracking. Who else is willing to share? Chris just mentioned the key word is and behind all of this and making changes to behind everything that we're talking on. One thing, habit. Everybody in here that's not tracking could set the goal next month of, man, I'm going to start tracking. My goal is to track my numbers next month so I can hit a 5K a month. My goal is to track my numbers next month so I can do this. But I'd much rather see you commit to making the new habit of tracking and measuring your actions in your business, starting today. Goals are zoomed out into the future, far ahead. We can't control them. We're setting a target, and we're trying to put our actions in a position each and every day to fulfill that target at the end. Habits are something that we can instill and create today by small changes that we make in our actions itself, such as measuring. We can start to commit to putting in motion this habit of measuring our actions as soon as today, knowing the impact that this will have. And it's funny too, because when we look at the reasons as to why we may not do this thing, we may say, towards the end of the day, I get tired and I forget about it. I get carried away. We may say it takes time. It's tedious. It's annoying. But when we look and zoom out, what's more annoying? Going into the end, or going into a new month, not knowing why you did what you did last month or how it led to any results, and kind of going into the next month blindly. Or going into month 2, knowing that you just did all these things and it led to this, led to your audience growing by this, it led to you booking X amount of calls, etc., with a clear plan of what you can narrow your focus to in month 2. Is it worth the short-term trade-off of an annoying 5-minute task to give you the clarity going into month 2 versus in the short term running away from that annoying thing and dealing with an even more annoying thing in the future? We're actually working on the book that we're working on writing right now, and some developments we're working on behind the scenes in the business right now is built around this piece of measuring and tracking, because it's something that we've put heavy importance on since the start, and to me, something that many people overlook. But it's super simple. Like, this is the difference between many people out there that are just showing up doing random things. If they simply start measuring their actions, this is the difference between them progressing 5 times as fast as they would if they didn't measure any actions. And not only does it benefit us in decision making in our business and being able to make more clear decisions on how to grow as we continue to advance and move, but it also makes it easier for us to show up. It creates confidence, creates momentum, and it creates awareness around what is most important in our business each and every day. And when we're not doing the things we want to do in our business, when we're wandering, jumping, especially when we know what we're supposed to do, it's because we don't have structure. And we don't have structure, we make excuses. When we make excuses, we procrastinate. But when we have structure, and we have habits in place that match that structure, we build this daily execution system that puts us in a position to show up, knowing that we're human and we're going to have bad days and we're going to still have days we don't show up. It's stuff like this that removes resistance to us taking action, makes action easier, makes it more exciting, and makes it more efficient. And I just shared I'm a maniac for tracking. This is awesome, this chart that I just pulled up. You and me both. To me, tracking, small thing in a spreadsheet, like this can be in any area of your life that you want to develop. I track areas in my health and fitness, in my personal development, in my business development. And because if I don't track it, I don't know if I did it. And if I don't know if I did it, I get down on myself because I don't know what I'm doing. When I don't know what I'm doing, I question myself every single day because I'm just doing circles and wandering aimlessly. We set the actions and we put a system in place to follow through with those actions, which is measuring. So who here alone on this topic today? We went a little bit off track from the topic of delivery, but this is a really, really important topic of measuring and showing up in our business. Just on the conversation alone, who here going forward is committed to making this a new habit in their business? For those that are saying yes, are you willing to commit to showing proof to me of your commitments of this by sharing it in the KPI and the measurement thread in 30 days from now? Yes. I will screenshot this entire. I'm gonna wait for everybody to come and say it. Actually, you know what? Let's take it a little further. Type out the words exactly. I am committed to tracking over the next 30 days. And in 30 days from now, I will share an update on my results of tracking to get insight from you as a coach on best next steps from here. Doesn't have to type out all that, but just simply say, I am committed to tracking for the next 30 days and sharing an update for you once I complete my 30 days of tracking. I will take a screenshot of this. I will mark it as a calendar reminder for myself. Good to see. Awesome. And this is where you guys have a choice over the next 30 days. It's one thing for me to touch base and say, hey, did you track it? Did you not? But think about this. Like everybody that does this, everybody that says yes today and shows up in 30 days from now, I'm going to be proud as hell for you for showing up and following through with your commitment. I'm not going to like the people that don't do it any less, but I'm going to be extra proud of the people that do. So if it's making me proud, that lights you up, if it's making yourself proud by showing up to yourself that makes you happy, whatever the rule of thumb is for you or whatever motivates you more, pick one of the two things. But if you made this commitment, keep that in your mind. I'm screenshotting it now. So as we continue on this topic, as we're on this here now today, coming back to Alan and Eunice mentioning, I'm doing actions every single day in my business, but what actions should I be doing more of? This is where if we were measuring our actions, we would know exactly what's serving us and what isn't. So some of the areas I'd like to see you guys go deeper on this is, number one, start tracking these actions that you're doing so you can actually see exactly what you're doing each and every day, and you can look back at the end of the month to look and see what you need to remove, what you don't. Number two, we got to be honest with ourselves in terms of what we're putting time towards in those actions. Alan mentioned, let's say here, Alan, he said he was sending an email, doing a story post, creating a reel, starting conversations, adding friends, we could probably go on and on longer. Look at this alone. If we woke up every day and said, this is what we're doing, who here would feel overwhelmed? Anybody? Just gotta go live in here. Coaching call. Big ongoing list of things we got to do in a day. Chances are, if this was the list, overwhelmed, but 1 to 2 actions takes time for the other important ones. Okay. Alan, you still on the call, man? I think you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
So let's circle back to kind of what you were sharing in the beginning. You basically said, like, for me, I'm doing all these things and putting all these time into all these actions, but I'm not quite sure what's leading to my results.
Yeah, I wish I knew what matters the most, basically. That was my point.
Okay. So let's identify this. How do you enroll clients right now? What's the end point that we're working to get to? You book calls and you present offers on calls, correct?
Yes, but it happens in Messenger in the beginning, and that we should shift into calls. Yeah.
Okay, so to enroll more clients, conversion process is book calls and present offers. So with all these actions that we're doing, we're trying to fuel this, correct? We're trying to book more calls and we're trying to present more offers to make more sales. That's why we're doing all these things daily.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. These are the inputs. Like, you know, when I look at these buckets, like I wish I could know with certainty, like in terms of percentage, like next to email, you would say discount 15%, story post discount for 25%, a real discount for 5%. See, like these are the inputs. Like there's a bunch of those that that build that momentum eventually, you know, and those sales happen, but I find it difficult to identify what actually led to those sales. You know, it's not always clear, and people will never tell you. I know that all of this is kind of like add-in, you know, it brings that trust to a level where people finally move forward. But which one of these components I should remove my attention from and put it towards another? Like, that's my point.
Let's solve it. Let's solve the equation. So if we know this to be true, this is the conversion process. And we know that if we book calls and if we present offers, we give ourselves a chance to make sales. So to do more of this, to book more calls so we can present more offers. Of this list here, just on the top of your mind, if you had to say of these three things, based on where you're at right now, Alan Clayton's business, what is the most important three things? If you could only pick three. You got only
conversations, igniting conversations, content, which is Facebook posts. It's like I go live. I mean, I do video stories every single day, as you know. So like just the bucket of content, it's already like, you know, Facebook post, it can be group post, it can be story, it can be real, like all this is content.
We're not talking about the how or the why specifically. We're talking just about the what of these three things. What are the most important three things? So we'll get into that next. But just you listed content as number 2. What's number 3?
Content, conversations, and number 3.
I'll zoom in here to go through this.
Add in friends. Yeah, there needs to be a constant flow of new leads, fresh leads coming in. Yeah.
So you say this is 3 for you. What about this?
That's part of the messenger process. Yeah, shifting from messenger to a call. Sure.
But is this not the most important thing of them all?
Sure, but it starts in messenger. Like you cannot provide a call without a messenger. So yes, obviously.
Correct. But we're talking on perception of focus. So if we know it starts in messenger, again, say example, Bob could go out and start messenger conversations for 2 hours with no end goal. But Susie could come out and say, I'm going to work an hour for messenger, but I'm going to offer 1 call. What drives the business forward more? What focus? This is the whole reason why we're measuring, because what we're doing is we're optimizing our actions towards the things that lead towards the outcomes. If we know that booking calls leads to us presenting offers and making sales, then one KPI that we should be narrowing our focus and optimizing around is this. Doesn't have to be messenger, could simply be offering calls. Let's say messenger. This is the one thing. If we go out and do one thing today, you could not post, you could not start new conversations, or you could not add new friends, you could not go live, you could not do a coaching call, you could not do the majority of these things. But if you went into one conversation that you already have active and you went and offered a call to the person that was close to being open to hopping on a call with you, that would be one thing that drove your business forward and fueled your sales process. It's the most important thing to leading to these new clients in our business. In a sense of action.
Not always. Some calls are a waste of time. But yeah, calls, when well done, when handled right, they're effective.
Now we're basically we're letting ourselves talk us out of this being the main thing, because we can say that call might always be with the most qualified person. But if we offer the call and they book with us and we have questions for them in the booking form, we can always say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to take the call with this person because they didn't align with who I would ideally like to speak to on the call. But without you offering that call, you wouldn't have had the opportunity to even make that decision.
Well, I don't always use qualifying questions. I don't always book a call through Calendly. It's rare for me, to be honest. It's obvious, probably, as you say. It depends, but I agree with you that it's one of those key pieces. Yeah.
Okay, so let's flip it around then. Let's say you do all these things, you start conversations, you add friends, but you never, ever invite someone to have a call with you. What happens?
Well, sales can be closed in Messenger, but it's more, no, not at this point. No, you're right. There needs to be a call at some point. But what generates those calls are Messenger conversations. So that's where it starts again.
Bingo. But what we're doing is working back from the end, and we're saying, okay, if this is the end goal, this is the end goal. What is the one thing that we can optimize for to help fuel this end goal first? The one thing that leads towards people coming into this, me enrolling clients, me growing my business. If we go one step backwards from booking calls, the optimization, the focus should be around this. This is the one thing that fuels that.
Absolutely. Yes.
So now the question becomes, if this is the one KPI that I'm narrow focused on, this every single day, now the question becomes, what can I do to help fuel these conversations to make it easier for me to offer calls? And what helps me offer calls easier in Messenger?
It started those conversations, both with new and warm people who already know me.
Yep.
So it's cold people. It's igniting with new people. Some of it may come from the content. It's a mixture, basically. It can be.
But we now know the three most important things for you right now would be on number one, this optimizing for this. This helps feed, starting conversations helps feed this. Putting out content helps build trust and helps make conversations easier, which also helps with this and helps with this. Those three things help Alan grow his business and put people into his sales process, which is what Alan's focused on optimizing right now, is bringing more clients into his business. So now we can, rather than looking and saying, man, should I do a reel every day? Should I do a live every day? Should I do a written post every day? This is where we can take out that overwhelm and say, hey, you know what? The only thing that I really need to worry about is this. So now, to help make this easier, I know that I need to start conversations. So this is what I should be blocking time out for. But number one, what helps me more easily start conversations? Am I noticing that it's easier for me to start conversations off of my reels and people engaging with those? Am I starting conversations easier off my lives? What to me is kind of been the most conversations in the easiest way for me. And if I don't know for sure, what I would do is, rather than trying to do all three in a day, of go live, do a written post, do a reel, do another post, do one thing each day, one piece of content that you put out. And you can track what you're doing for that piece of content that day. Today I did a reel. Tomorrow I did a short form post. Saturday I did a live. And you can compare those trends of what you're selecting to do each day with how many calls you're booking in that week. You may notice when you're doing more reels, you're booking more calls. When you're going live more, you're booking more calls, or you're offering more calls.
Okay, for that, I would have to tweak that KPI,
100%. Yep. And these are things that I'm showing you guys where you have the ability to tweak the KPI based on what you want to measure and see what's serving you more. For you, Alan, at this point in your journey, for sake of example, you don't have as much resistance in offering calls as what you did when you were just getting started. So let's say if we take back to Alan 6 months ago, just for sake of example, this isn't fully true, but let's say at this stage, Alan was at 500 friends on Facebook, never booked any calls, and content was non-existent, little to none. More than likely, at this stage, in the very beginning stages, you're not really focused on like immediately just offering calls and trying to create sales. You know that number one, to put yourself in a position to create more sales consistently, this audience needs to grow. So this will be one area of focus that you'd put your attention towards in measuring and tracking. So, hey, I'm making sure that I'm growing my audience each and every day. This is a critical, important piece for me. For you, it could still be here offering calls. Not worry about the sale, but knowing that, hey, I got to just get comfortable in asking the question. Whether they book, whether they don't or not, I just got to get comfortable in asking the question. Same with content. This is where, like, when we go up to this example above, although adding friends is important, although bringing new people into your audience is important, this isn't me telling you not to do that. This is me saying, based on where I'm at in my journey now, what is most important based on what I'm optimizing for. If you are optimizing for audience growth and bringing a bunch of new people into your audience because you needed that most right now, this would be a top 3 focus. But right now, you have a pretty good audience in place. Your sales process is working, and you're just trying to bring more people into that so you can bring in more clients. So for you, the main focus is around that, and that's what we're optimizing for. And again, in all of this discussion, this isn't to say that we can't still add friends if we're focused on this. We can't still do another thing. But we can narrow our focus towards the 3 most important things that we're putting our time towards that day. And we can put these as extra. So if Alan goes out today and he offers 1 call on Messenger, and he starts 20 new conversations to help with offering calls for tomorrow or the next day, and he puts up a piece of content, Alan just won the day. If he's got time at the end of the day to still add some friends and bring some new people into his world, that's a bonus. But we can show up and execute much easier if we can strip back and ask ourselves, what are the 3 most important things that lead towards what I'm optimizing for right now in my business? And then from there, we're tracking those 3 things and seeing how they actually impact them. And this is where we can go from feeling we got to do 20 things in a day to really seeing that it's 3 things that move the needle forward and being able to go all in with those 3 things.
Yeah, that's kind of the dream. Have someone who's at least adding those people for me. Like I would feel so much relieved, and it would free up my energy to speak with more people in Messenger if someone else was at least adding them. Like, if I can take it off my plate, would be really great.
Of course, man. 100%. But I think that the point of this conversation itself was, what is my time best spent on? And what is needed, what isn't? What is it best leverage? What should I put more time towards? What shouldn't I? And we know that based on previous conversations in our mind, we're always going to fall back to feeling like we have to do this. And again, this isn't me saying it's not important, but it's more so prioritizing what is most important. And for you right now, based on where you're at in your journey, perhaps friend adding isn't the most important thing of the 3. Maybe it's number 4, but that means it's 4th in the priority list. Not 1st, not 2nd, not 3rd. If we make it feel like it's 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, we'll always think of that when we're doing the other actions. We'll go to have Messenger conversations, offer calls to Messenger, do content, and we'll beat ourselves up because we're not doing the thing that we felt we needed to do. But now we can know we're doing the core 3 things that we need to do and everything else is extra. That perspective shift changes things. Makes sense for everybody listening in? See you, Krister. Thanks for hopping on, man. Good to see you. Is this stuff helpful I'm talking on here today, or is this just like blowing smoke? If it's not helpful, you guys can tell me.
No, it's definitely, that's exactly how I feel about the situation. It's exactly the answers all those questions. Thank you.
Good to hear. We gotta take this stuff seriously because it's super, super important. And we kind of went way off the topic of today's focus of coaching and delivery, which we're actually going to nudge into now to let you guys know to make up for it. Since we didn't get to this today, we're going to do another call next Tuesday, with that being the focus. So rather than having to wait another week till we get to that, we will have another call taking place same time next Tuesday, and I'll put the event up right afterwards. But I want you guys to also use this as a precursor to what we're going to talk on more in depth next week on this coaching topic. Because what I just did here was an example to illustrate what exactly this topic was itself around coaching. When we go back up to the top, when we go back up to the top and just on this conversation as a whole, it's as we're coaching clients, as we're working with clients, we may have clients that come to us, just like in the example today, where some say, you know what, I'm not motivated, I'm not showing up. And we could just say, go out and do the thing. You got to show up, you got to be willing to show up, you got to be in tune with your why. But if you can help them see the gap between where they're at and what they want to feel, now they can actually start to step in and take action in what they need. The only way to create that gap is to go deeper and ask the right questions doing so. There's going to be a lot we're talking on next week. But notice, I didn't come in here when Alan said, hey, I'm trying to figure out what are the 3 most important things to do. I didn't just come and say, Alan, you need to do this, this, and this. I helped him understand how to make that decision himself through logical questions and through going deeper with his thought process. Through this, we uncovered things like maybe Alan prioritizes adding friends because it's something that he has always felt is needed to grow his business. But through what we talked on in coaching in this conversation, he can now see that maybe he needs to take some weight off of that. Let me catch up with the chat here quickly. Taps 10 pound. Awesome. Good to hear, guys. Glad it was helpful. In the meantime, until we get into next week's, with a few dropping off, we can save most of the dialogue on this for next session focus. I don't get down another rabbit hole. But let me know in the chat, for those that are still here with me now, when you're coaching a client, whether you're on a free value call or whether you're on a coaching call with a client that paid you money, what do you worry about in those coaching sessions? What's uncomfortable? What do you not? For example, maybe you feel like you have to have all the answers, but you don't have them. Maybe you feel like you don't know what to say when you get asked a certain question. Maybe you don't know how to help a client break past a certain feeling. When doing that, it's stopping you from doing it.
Prioritizing topics.
I'm afraid she'll think I'm not up to speed, trying to impress her, but I shouldn't. Okay, make sure I see the story. Anybody here that's on the call now want to take an extra, like I know Anna said a coaching session tonight. I'm available here for the next 10 minutes for folks that want to stay on here a little bit longer and just talk through a few of these things until we continue this into part 2 next week. So I'll just continue on with that. So this is a great example. Anna just said, I'm afraid she'll think I'm not up to speed. I'm trying to impress her and I really shouldn't. These are things that most people won't come and willingly share with you as a client straight away. It takes asking questions just like I did. I just asked the question of, to you, what makes you uncomfortable right now within your coaching call process? A question that frequently, it's this. Somebody else format, but what I'm trying to prove and emphasize here at this point is the fact that it's the questions that allow us to uncover what we really need to uncover to help that person. A client may come to you and say, you know what? I'm not taking calls right now. Or I'm not making sales. Not making sales, let's say that. And I have no clue why. For you guys as a coach, what would be your first step from here?
First thing is determine, ask him if he's what kind of activity he engage in on a daily basis. Then tracking them. That's one thing talk about.
Yep. So we could get into the actions of like how are you doing? So you're saying you're saying what are the actions you're taking?
Right. So what kind of actions are you taking on a daily basis, and kind of time are you spending on them?
Okay. And then they share with you, let's say having some calls, still not making sales. What's the next step?
Then how is your content doing? Who are you talking to? Who are you targeting?
This is a great example. Because, not to say that what Eunice said is wrong, it's not wrong, but there's a more efficient way to get to the core of the problem that you're speaking to for that client that you're speaking with itself. We could start out and go through, okay, we're not making sales. What actions are you taking? Here's all the actions that I'm taking. Okay, how are you adding friends? How are you starting combos? Are you having calls, etc.? If we try to drill into all of these things, we'll probably be able to uncover some areas they can improve and show up better in that area. But what would be more beneficial first to know, aside from this, aside from going in the weeds on how they're doing all the micro actions? This is a how. How are you adding friends? How are you starting combos? How are you having calls, etc.? This is where it gets tough. This is such a great point. Honestly, Anna just said this is where I get stuck. This is where I go crazy. It's easy to go crazy. To his actions, and we go straight into how he's doing those actions. You could conclusion or next step as to what to improve. What you're trying to do is pull out the one domino that will make the biggest difference for them. The one thing. This is like when we were just talking with Alan, for example. We were running through the things that he's doing, and I asked him, list the 3 most important things, only 3 that you would choose. And when I told him only 3, he listed off a couple others in addition to the 3, and then he started explaining why he was listing off those 3 and talking about why he felt this thing, why he felt that thing. Although that was important for him to maybe share that, or he wanted to share it, I knew it wasn't important to get to the core of what we were trying to break past. So that's why I pushed away and I said, hey, we're not going to talk about that. We're picking 3 here. Same in this instance. Somebody's not making sales, have no clue why. You could drill down on all the steps, all the actions, all of the how. But why not first ask them, in your opinion, what do you feel like is causing this? Move this over and let's paint a separate scenario. So I'm not making sales and I have no clue why. Okay, so in your opinion, what do you feel like is causing you to not make sales right now? Honestly, I don't know why it is. I'm showing up, I'm taking actions daily, just can't seem to figure out why I'm not making sales. Honestly, no clue. So they're lost in the weeds. They're taking actions daily, no clue on how to make sales, but they're showing up and doing the thing. This tells me as a coach, they first need to get clarity on what they're working towards, what the end goal is, just like we did today. So the next thing I'd ask them is, okay, let's get to the bottom of this. For you, when it comes to making sales, what is the end goal that you're working to get to when working with people on Facebook, prospects that you're speaking to, conversations? What is the ultimate end goal that we're working towards? They may say, I don't. We clarify the end goal first. So here, clarify end goal and focus. So in this example, just like we did today, we clarified that for many, the end goal, the focus should be around offering calls. That's one thing that for a beginner that's focused on doing a lot, they're dealing with information overload. They're watching trainings. They're seeing that they got to put up content, have calls, start combos, add friends. It's overwhelming as hell. But if we can help them walk away from the session knowing the one thing that they're needing to focus on, and also help them understand what's stopping them from doing that now, to me, that's a one session with that client. That's really going to help them break past that and win. So we're stripping away, simplifying the focus to the end goal first, and then ideally in there, trying to figure out what is blocking them from getting to this point. So if we know that, let's say, offering calls is the end goal that how do you feel you're not doing that?
Recording in progress.
But now the question is, why aren't they doing that thing? So now when they say no, I would say, why? For you personally, why aren't you offering calls? Is it something where you don't know how to do? Or does it just not feel comfortable? Or does it not feel comfortable? Please elaborate. And guess what we can uncover with this question? This person will give us very clear direction on what we want to do next to help them as a coach. They may say, you know what? Honestly, I know I need to do this. I just don't know how to do it. If I could have some conversation examples where you help kind of show me how to go about transitioning to offering the call, and if you could support me with that, this would be a big help. But they may also say, you know what? I'm worried I'll get told no. When they say yes. I'm worried I'll get told no. I'm afraid because I don't know what to say, what to do when they say yes. One mind up top is worried about rejection. One mind down below is worried about looking less skilled. They're looking like they don't know, like they aren't qualified. But if we can help them get clear on this and break past this, everything else in the process becomes easier. But these are things that they either don't know, don't realize, or don't want to realize yet. They're running away from this. But if they face this head on and understood that, hey, this is going on, and here's how we're going to break past it for you as a coach guiding them, now they can actually make shifts. So we could have spent the whole session saying, how are you adding friends? How are you starting combos? Are you having calls? How is your content doing? Or we can get right into the core. What's causing this right now? Zoom out. What's the end goal that we're working towards? Why is this not happening for you personally? Just versus just giving you some tactical advice here. Oh, use this framework in your content. Use this framework in your combos. Use this. Areas. But if they're not aligned with offering calls because they're afraid they're going to get rejected when they get in the call, nothing else matters. We got to focus on solving that block first. Does that make sense in the coaching level for those here listening in still?
I didn't hear the question.
Just honestly, more just kind of conversation on this topic when it comes to this coaching thing. It's like, I'm sure you guys have experienced this before when it comes to coaches. Us, when we're fearing delivering and coaching on calls, just like you said, I'm worried about not knowing to say the right thing, not knowing what to say, etc. This is because we feel like we have to have all the answers. We feel like we have to know exactly what to tell them to do. But sometimes the best thing we can do as a coach is get them to see why they're not doing the thing and get them to understand how to break past that.
Yeah, because what I feel is like, oh, I need to have the answer and I need to have it like immediately, and it needs to be like super awesome and clear and in one.
Nope.
Think I'm adequate and stuff like this, but it's more in my head. Yeah.
100%. And this is just, again, like we talked on before, part of this is new. You're unsure, it's unknown, and it's uncomfortable because it's new right now. But I think one thing to help you going into your coaching session tonight is think about less of going into this call and feeling like you have to have all the answers. You don't. What you need to do is focus more on simply asking questions around what you're extracting from them and what they're sharing, and going deeper on that to really uncover what the one domino is that's going to make the biggest difference for them. And I encourage that to be less focused on the tactics.
Yeah, also finding.
Yep, you go ahead.
Also finding this one domino, because normally people give like a list of stuff, that, well, I'm doing this, and that, and blah, 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 blah. So I'm not really sure how to take out one specific thing and I ask them, because normally they don't really know, or they're just guessing, or they're being too generic. So I feel like I should have a battle plan before going into this, because if I let them choose and decide, it's going to throw me, off board.
Yeah. So let's end the call with this. So we can wrap up with this. You can go into your call tonight with some more clarity on this, and we can go deeper on this next week. So when you jump on the call tonight, is this your first call with this person?
It's not gonna happen tonight. Now it's like 11:30 p.m. It's almost midnight in
Tomorrow.
communicating a lot before, and she trusts me. Everything is awesome, but of the actual coaching call, it's going to be like my first. So yeah.
Okay. So we'll go into framework of kind of like reoccurring calls, what to do in the second call, third call, so on and so forth from there. But I think to start for the question of whenever, typically I'd like to kick the call off with, let's say, some wins and a recap from last session, but you didn't have that with her. So for her, it's your first kickoff call with her. Let's call this kickoff call. Depending on how much information you're armed with about her before the call, the first thing I would do as a coach is get clarity on a snapshot of where she's at up until this point. So you can even let her,
because yes, this is what I already suggested. I sent her a version of a KPI to start filling in to see how much she's posting, how many people she's talking, to get the data for the beginning so we can compare it afterwards to see where the progress happened, because she might feel as if she's not making the progress, but if she compares, then she will see where she did the progress exactly. But now I need to, she needs to also change the cover photo. She needs, who is she going to be helping to, hone down on her avatar, because she's all over the place, and decide what her offer is going to be, because she has several things, different ones.
okay.
So we need to start from all this. Yeah.
What do you feel of that mix, knowing that she's got a cover photo that needs to be improved? Here we can say this here. Developments. Cover photo.
It's not so much the cover photo itself, it's what's written on the photo, because she's currently offering some nonsense like make $300 a day without doing anything. So I'm really hoping she's going to give up on that, because I don't think she aligns with it, but she's like trying to make a quick buck. So she's torn between offering a more serious course and offering this quick, because she's thinking she can just pull it off and get some money, but I don't think it's going to happen. So for that reason, I thought she needs, yeah.
Yep. So basically with these developments in mind, things that we know that need to be improved as a coach for her to win online. We're looking back, just like we did with Alan, and we're deciding what's the most important thing first. To me, when it comes to, based on what you're saying, she was like a little bit misalignment with direction of what she's telling. Her cover photo needs to be improved. Her offer is vague. At the end of the day, she needs this first. And this will help feed an offer, and this will help get the cover photo in place. So what I would focus session number one is all about getting her into a mode where she's set on the direction of what she wants to take going forward with what she's selling. And I would let her know going into the call that, hey,
first what she wants to sell.
Yep. And then working on offer from there. And I would basically start the call letting her know that, like, over the next coming weeks, we're going to be getting into areas such as offer creation, working on your cover photo, talking on sales conversations, and all the components to bringing your business to life. But based on the conversations that we've had leading up until this point, and my experience as a whole, to me, I think what would best serve you in this session today is creating alignment around the direction of what you're selling going forward, knowing how much easier this will make everything else.
Yes, sure.
So today I'd like to take some time to go deeper on that with you. But before I do, and before we get into today's session, I'm curious from you, on our first kickoff call here, if we were to advance to the end of this call today, what's the one thing in your mind that we could accomplish or tackle today that you think would make the biggest difference? So we just said we're focusing on alignment with offer and selling direction. We asked her, what's the one thing? Maybe she says this. If so, she's in line with you. She's ready to give attention and focus towards this. And I think it's perfect. Like, just roll with that. Maybe she says, I want to, if I could know how to make a $300 sale today to get my first sale down, that would be ideal for me. Does it sound like something that may pop up? If this came up,
well, I'm thinking, yeah, she's going to go for the alignment, I think, but I need to check. Yes, she needs to say it. You're right.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying this is, like, when we state what we feel is best to spend this time today, and then we ask them this question, we're showing them the respect to, number one, see, in their opinion, what do they feel is the most important thing right now? Maybe she comes to you and says this. If I honestly, like, this is important, but if I could just know how to make that first sale, I feel like everything else would be easier. This is where you want to agree with her and say, honestly, I understand that. But to me, based on where we're at right now, with this mindset, if we were just focused today on making this $300 sale, what happens tomorrow and a month from now if you don't want to go with this direction, or if this isn't the product that you want to sell? What we can't do is just be focused on short-term money and making a quick sale. And this is why today, what I feel would be best for us to focus on is put energy towards building around what we think will actually sustain long-term, rather than just focusing on the quick win, the short-term sale. We're focused on getting the foundations in place so you can create more sales beyond just this first one.
Oh, okay, totally. Long-term.
And now you're putting them into a conversation that to you as the coach is the most important. Like, if she can be aligned with this direction she's taking this offer, what she's selling, everything else will be easier. The problem is right now she's not aligned with that, but she just wants to make a quick sale. So you as the coach are challenging her mindset on that and kind of shifting her belief and showing her that, hey, we're not focused just on making a quick $300 sale today. Those sales will come. But to make those sales possible, let's focus on really building an offer around what you want to sell.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Awesome.
Then the questions become just based around this. So, for example, based on the products that you currently have available to you now, it looks like you're selling this $300 a day product. And I know you mentioned to me before that you were considering selling another course option as well. Do you mind sharing with me a little bit more on where you're at with that now? She shares, maybe she says, you know what? I've considered both options. I like the $300 a day option because it's a way for me to make money quick, but I feel like this option is better for me. This is where you can, again, work to align her beliefs away from just the quick money, quick cash towards what you feel is best long-term. Asking her questions around, like, to you, what would you feel most beneficial, or what would you feel if you were selling or offering a product to a person tomorrow, what would you feel more confident selling them? This $300 a day thing or this course? And what we're doing is getting her to think about the impact of selling this thing, how it will help others, if that's something that she cares about, etc.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Great point.
And then what I would do at the end is, once you, by the end of this call, hopefully have direction on saying, hey, direction on offer and product. Then what I would do is say, over the next call, we're going to start to work on that offer. Call 2, offer developments. Now that we've decided the direction that we want to take this offer, in the next session, we're going to focus on working together to bring this offer to life. In the meantime, I would like to see you complete these steps. And you give her some action steps to fulfill in the meantime until the next call.
Okay. And how often do you suggest the call should be on this, or maybe on 10 days, or it depends?
It really all depends. I think if it's something like in this where maybe they have some homework to do, maybe you're going to give them a worksheet to fill in or something to work on in the meantime. Like, I've always found that, to me, 2 weeks between calls is the most beneficial because it gives them time to take action between. But perhaps this is a person that really just is like unsure on answers to these questions and what they're working on, and they need more support between. So You can choose to offer them bi-weekly calls or weekly calls. You could state it for bi-weekly, and you could say, if you get stuck, come to me and we'll hop on a quick huddle sooner or a quick call sooner. But that one's up for you to decide in terms of how often you want to. That's typically stated in the sale. Either bi-weekly calls, weekly calls, etc.
Okay. Okay, great.
If you
Thanks.
choose to wrap up here, if you choose bi-weekly over weekly, to give, like, let's say, just give a reasoning as to why you choose it. Based on my experience, us setting up for bi-weekly sessions allows you to have more time to take action on what we're talking on between calls. That way we can be most efficient on our sessions.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with that.
Well,
You got
10
it?
days, but maybe 10 days is not. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
10 days is good. Don't worry about having all the answers to the questions on this call, but really just focus on getting a clear snapshot of where she's at, where she wants to go. And for you, focusing on the one domino that you think is most important now and kind of going deeper with her on that. Asking questions, creating clarity on that one thing.
Great, Blake. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem, Anna. All right, guys, we'll wrap up with that. Part 2 coming soon. We'll get a call scheduled for
Thank
next
you.
Tuesday, and we'll roll from there. Have a good week, everyone.
Have a good
Thanks.
week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Recording stopped.